now we're familiar with the features of the SLAYER steam single, we can start talking about how to set this machine up. And this video is going to have 4 different sections. First of all, I'm going to talk you through what all of the parts of the machine are, what they do and how to use them. Second, I'll talk through some other things you're going to need in order to start brewing some delicious coffee. Third, we'll run through the Barista Dashboard, which is a really powerful tool in getting the very best out of the machine. And then fourth, I'll give you some quick workflow tips so you can really optimize your workspace. So first of all, let's start taking a look at some of the parts of the machine. So before we even think about powering up the machine, brewing coffee, there are a few things that are really important to do. So particularly before you use the machine for the first time, you want to read the instruction manual from cover to cover. There's lots of really important information in here which can't be missed, so make sure you do that. And second of all, give the machine a little visual inspection. Make sure everything's as it's supposed to be so you can get the best experience when you start brewing. Once you've done this, we can start setting the machine up. So do not turn the power on just yet. The first thing we need to do is move our hot water and steam ones out of the way. Remove our drip tray, which is really easy to do, like so. And then we need to add up to 2.5 litres of good quality fresh water into our reservoir. So not only is good quality brewing water really critical to brewing delicious coffee, it's also really important to keep your machine nice and healthy. So again, make sure you refer back to the instruction manual or the SLAYER website and follow the SLAYER recommended specs when it comes to water. Add your water to the reservoir and don't exceed that max level line, which is around about 2.5 litres. So now we've got our brewing water, just push this back into the machine where it goes. And you want to give it a little push, particularly on the right-hand side, until you hear a little click, just to make sure it's fully engaged. So now the water's in, we can pop back our drip tray, position, bring back our wands, and now we can connect the machine to the power and go ahead and turn it on. One of the really nice things about this machine is that it runs on regular household power, so you don't need to have an electrician come in and add a really kind of hefty electrical supply. You can just plug it in at the wall, turn it on. As soon as you turn the machine on, it'll start to fill. And once that's done, you can just move the encoder knob one position counterclockwise, and the machine will start to heat up. You can see that the machine's heating when the colons on the Barista Dashboard are flashing, and then once it reaches its desired temperature and pressure, we're going to be ready to go. So a few things about the machine. We're going to work our way across the front, talking about what everything does. So first of all, we've got our steam actuator. This has 2 positions. Up, which will kind of purge the steam wand, but not stay on, like so. And then down, where the steam wand will stay on, so you can use this when you're steaming milk. Beneath that, we've got the pressure gauge, and then on top of the machine, we've got the cup tray. The machine keeps this surface pretty warm, so it's a nice place to keep your cups. Then front and center on the machine, we've got the Barista Dashboard, which we'll run through in a second, and then we've got the brewing actuator. So there's 2 different ways of using this, which we'll talk much more about in future videos, but essentially we've got manual mode and automatic mode. So in manual mode, the 3 positions work as off on the right-hand side. We've got a restricted flow rate in position 1. Here, the water moves through the pre-infusion circuit, which is restricted to around 3 grams per second by a fixed orifice. And then full unrestricted flow rate in position 2, which is our left-hand position. When we move into automatic mode, this works slightly differently. The right-hand position still functions as off, but then position 1 and position 2, the middle position and the left position, you can actually save different recipes to. So you can assign a recipe per position and repeat that and play it back all day. The steam single comes with a naked portafilter and an 18-gram basket as standard, but this is really easy to remove if you've got your own preferred basket that you'd like to use. Moving down, we've got our shot light and our shot mirror, giving you really good visibility over your extractions. And then we've got that massive drip tray, which we talked about before, to catch all your wastewater really easily. To the right of the machine, we've got the hot water spout and then the hot water actuator. And another really smart feature here is you can actually set 2 different doses for your hot water. You can also manually control how much water you dispense just by pushing the hot water actuator downwards and stopping when you're ready. So they're all the key elements of the machine. Now we're going to talk about what else you're going to need in order to start brewing. So as well as the machine, you're going to need some good quality coffee. If you're not sure about what coffee to buy, there are a huge range of resources online. You can also speak to your local coffee shop or local roastery, talk about what flavor profiles you do enjoy, maybe what kind of flavors you don't enjoy, and they should be able to point you in the right direction. Within specialty coffee, there's a huge spectrum of flavors that can be found. Everything from the lighter, more delicate kind of floral notes, through to your fresh fruit and dried fruit, into your nutty flavors and your darker, more developed flavors. You've got different sensations, lighter coffees, heavier coffees, lighter roasts right through to darker roasts. There's a huge world of flavor within coffee, so make sure you explore it and find different coffees that you enjoy. We always recommend buying your coffee as beans rather than pre-ground, and you're gonna need a good quality grinder to get the very best out of those beans. So as a bare minimum, you're gonna want a burr grinder rather than a blade grinder, but generally speaking, the better the quality grinder, the better the experience you're gonna have, and the better the cup quality. To ensure quality and consistency, you're gonna need to measure your dose and your yield by using scales. And then when it comes to your barista tools, there's a lot of personal preference here, and there are lots of different tools available. But as a bare minimum, you want something that's gonna effectively distribute the grounds in the basket to give you an even and consistent extraction. And then you want something to compact that bed like a tamper. Depending on the grinder you use, you might want something like a spritz bottle to carry out the RDT Ross droplet technique. You might want some dosing cups, and you might want a paintbrush just to help you kind of clean up after yourself. You'll also need a cleaning blank and some espresso machine cleaner to keep your machine in tip-top condition. With all that being said though, if you don't have every tool available, that's completely fine. Don't let it be a barrier to entry. Use what you have to get the best results with what's available. Finally, you might want some milk, some alternative milk, and some other ingredients, depending on the drinks you're preparing. We'll talk more about those later, but now let's move on to the Barista Dashboard. Okay, so now we're going to talk through the Barista Dashboard, or the Heads Up Barista Dashboard as we call it. And we call it this because you can see what's going on, keep looking up, keep engaging with your customers, maybe keep an eye on your kids. And this is a really powerful base, which sets up everything that kind of happens within the machine. So it's really easy to use. The first thing we need to check is whether we're in manual or automatic mode. And to do this, you just turn the encoder knob one position to the left, where you can toggle between manual brewing and automatic brewing. So both of these are kind of slightly different ways of making coffee. They'll give you slightly different options in the menu as well. So we're going to focus on manual mode for now. So select this by pressing the encoder knob, go back to where we started, and we're just going to run through the menu and the manager menu to talk through what every option is and what it does. So first of all, you'll see save last shot. Essentially, this means if you brewed a coffee you're really happy with in the manual mode, you can save it or record it as we call it, assign that to one of the positions on the brew actuator, and then repeat that back or play it back all day. Next up, we have our brew temperature. This isn't something I often change early in the process of dialing in. Occasionally, I'll increase or decrease it quite far into the dialing in process, but I prefer to leave it fairly stable at around about 93.5. Some people advocate for a slightly higher brew temp for a lighter roast coffee, which is a little bit harder to extract. Maybe a slightly lower temperature for a darker roast coffee, which is much easier to extract or over extract, which obviously we don't want to do. But 93.5 is a pretty good starting point, maybe plus or minus 2 to 3 degrees depending on your preferences. And you can set this to Fahrenheit if you prefer, which I'll show you how to do later. Then we have our quick clean and our full clean functionality. The quick clean is just for throughout the day as a really quick clean, as it sounds like. And then the full clean is a more guided kind of end of day cleaning, which is really important to stay on top of. Next, we can turn the machine off. And this is more of a standby mode, whereas the back of the machine obviously is the complete power down. If you do this, it'll essentially show this screen, off, the time and the day. But to come out of this is really easy. Just turn the encoder knob, one position, and it'll come back to life. Essentially in this standby mode, we're turning off the heating elements. It gives you the screen to see what's going on, and you can just turn it on quite quickly. And then the next option we have is our time and date, which is more of a reference at this point, but we do need to make sure this is right for some of the other settings a little bit later on. We have our manager menu, which we'll go through in a second. We've got our technical menu, which is more geared towards technicians, so we're not going to talk about that in this video. And then finally, our mode select, where we can select between manual and automatic brewing. So going back to our manager menu, when you click into this by pressing the encoder knob, we're kind of going down a layer in terms of settings. I'm going to work through some of the kind of deeper settings in the machine. So first of all, it'll tell you when your next service is due, which is really important to adhere to. Hot water program dose, this can save you time and waste. You can actually assign 2 different amounts of water to be dispensed. So click in here. We have dose 1, which is a single push up on the hot water actuator. I've got this set to 2.5 seconds for a smaller cup. And then if you press it again, you can set dose 2, which I've got set for a bigger cup with 7 seconds of dispensing water. And you can change this up or down depending on your cup size. We can then change between Celsius and Fahrenheit just by clicking between the two and pressing the encoder knob to make your choice. I'm going with Celsius for these videos. Steam pressure is set to 1.6 bar, but you can adjust this up and down if you prefer to. Although again, I like to leave this kind of stable and perhaps adjust the steam tips on your steam wand if you want to increase or decrease the flow of steam. Then we've got our shot light brightness. This is underneath the group, giving you visibility over your extractions. Can be really useful if you're in low light. I've got it set to 100%, but you can click into this and decrease the amount. But I like to have this all the way up so I can really see what's going on with my extractions. Next up, the barista display mode. This is when we're brewing in automatic. You can either have time and weight showing or just time, but I like to see that weight as a reference. So I'm gonna leave that as it is. Auto purge settings, again, really cool. This is essentially where you finish brewing your shot in automatic mode. When you move it off into the off position, the group will automatically purge. And you can also set it to have a timed purge, where you just click the actuator into position 1 and back again, and you can time how long this purges for. So if we click into this, I like to leave this on with a duration of 3 seconds, but you can turn this off, increase or decrease the duration of your purge, and you've got a lot of control there. Next up, we've got our display off settings, and essentially this means the Barista Dashboard will go blank after a certain amount of time. I like to leave this at 30 seconds to save a bit of energy, but you can increase this in 30-second increments. I'm gonna leave that at 30 seconds because it's really easy to turn back on. Just actuate the group and it'll come back to life. We've got our shot counters and our hot water counters. And then we've got a really interesting one, the power save settings. So I've got this set to off at the moment so I can manually turn the machine on and off when I want to. My life's fairly erratic at the moment, so I don't have that consistent time I want the machine on and off. But with this, you've got 2 more options, a 5-day setting or a 7-day setting. So if you're going to 5 days, you can set a particular time between Monday to Friday for the machine to come on and then go to sleep. And then on the weekends, you can do the same thing, a time for it to come on and then go to sleep. And this will obviously save energy or give you coffee in the morning with your machine ready to go as soon as you get up. For that to work properly, obviously we need to set our time to be correct and our date to be correct. So again, really easy to do. And that is the manager menu. So at any point when you've made your changes, if you want to come out of the menu quickly, there's 2 ways to do that, both really easy. Either hold down the encoder knob, and this will come out, or simply actuate the brew group into position 1 and back again, and you'll be back to where you started. So really simple, really easy. And then the final thing, which will show some slightly different menu items, is to click back into our mode select, move this across to automatic, and we'll click that. And this will show a few more options. So first of all, you'll see the screen displays some slightly different characteristics, which we'll talk about in 2 videos time. Just now, we're not going to talk about the brew parameters or the calibrate weight options, because we'll talk about those in 2 videos time, all about automatic brewing. But we're going to come back out of here, and then we're going to talk about some workflow tips. So when it comes to creating an efficient workflow, there are just a few things you really do need to bear in mind so you can have the best experience when it comes to making coffee on the SLAYER Steam Single. So first of all, you want to have everything on hand that you're going to need. Just like a good chef would have their mise en place, their things in place, a good barista will have all their tools on hand without having to walk around the kitchen or the bar they're working behind in order to grab the things they need. So whenever you're setting up your coffee bar, you either want to work from left to right or right to left, and this will just give you a logical flow from preparing your coffee to extracting it and then adding other ingredients. So whichever way you lay out your coffee bar, you want to make sure you have a dry station with all your dry ingredients, so your coffee beans, your grinder, your tamper and your distributors, and then a wet station with your espresso machine and maybe your other ingredients. This will keep things really nice and tidy, clean, hygienic and organized, and give you a great experience. And then a couple of things that can speed up workflow if you're looking to kind of move a bit quicker. You could buy a split portafilter to essentially split your espresso into 2, maybe increasing your speed. Get some bigger baskets so you can have a higher dose and maybe a longer yield. Or you could even consider buying a second portafilter, so one can be extracting while the other one's being prepared. So hopefully there's some useful tips to get you all set up and ready to make coffee. And in the next video, we're going to do that using the manual mode.